And welcome. Raising Your Game today. I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking about the inner game of life. Tuesdays are for the middle game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. So how are you this week? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're continuing to have lovely spring weather like we are. I must say the season is a bit of a mixed bag. For me, it's mostly great because I love the weather so much, but the allergies are just killing me right now. And they always do, but I forget they're coming. Anyway, more on that in a minute. Plenty to talk about this week. Trump's ridiculous jet gift from Qatar, what do they call it, the Flying Palace. Our new American Pope, that's exciting. Some more crazy Trump nominations. The latest Republican craziness. A couple of good news items. A great self-mastery challenge. And what might be the most ridiculous video you will ever see. All right, we'll start with ups and downs. So what things were giving me a lift this week and what things are pulling me down? For my ups, Mother's Day was pretty great. Had brunch at our kids' high school. Lovely day. We didn't get to fully celebrate for Margaret because she was working that day. We'll have our own Mother's Day for her this coming Sunday. But it was still very nice. I went for a run this week for the first time, and I honestly can't remember the last time I ran outdoors. I used to run a couple times a week, but pickleball has taken over my cardio workouts. But since I still can't seem to get a game going, I went for a run. I was sort of dreading it because it had been so long, but it actually went great. It wasn't that hard, not nearly as hard as I expected. That made me pretty happy. Also, Peter is home from college. Second year, done now. All good. Home for the summer. That's really nice too, you can imagine. For my downs, Peter's travel day was pretty stressful. His first flight was delayed enough that he actually missed his connection. First time that's ever happened to him. The next flight they rebooked him on was like 5 hours later, which then got bumped to 6 hours later, which made us worry that maybe he wouldn't make it at all that night. And it messed up our plans on our end. The airport's a couple hours away in Madison. I was going to head in early, do a couple errands, pick him up, and then have a nice dinner together, just the two of us. That would have been great. But that plan was shot. So I ended up leaving here later, but with plenty of time. But as soon as he got into the air, his arrival time changed to like a half hour earlier for some reason. So now I'm scrambling to get there in time. I barely made that. The whole thing was very stressful for much of the day. And we didn't finally get home till like 1 a.m. So that was not great. A bigger thing, I mentioned my allergies are just kicking my butt. Sneezing, tired all the time, my voice, maybe you can hear it. It's just crazy how much that drags on you. I'll take a nap, I'm still tired. Just makes everything a lot harder. Sort of a bummer there. Even bigger, I've had this crazy leg pain for almost a week now. It's neuropathic, meaning it seems to just be my nerves acting up. There's no underlying cause. It's not the muscles or the bones. There's no damage or swelling. They just hurt. Sort of like cramping, the quality of it, but not really. It comes in my knees or my shins or my feet, my ankles at various times. It moves around. It's super sharp, sort of a burning pain, and we have no idea what's causing it. There are several typical causes of something like this. It doesn't fit any of those. One of the weirdest things is the timing. It's not there all the time. There's nothing during the night. It's not bothering my sleep, which is great. Nothing first thing in the morning when I wake up. It kicks in pretty reliably between like 9 and 10 in the morning, and then just keeps going in various forms throughout the day. The one exception is exercise. If I go to the gym or like my run yesterday, it goes away and hardly comes back at all day. If I don't exercise, it sticks around, but then goes away again at night. Just the weirdest thing. But that is a huge distraction, as you can imagine. And again, we just have no idea. Is it allergy related? That didn't make sense. Probably not. Is it a late reaction to the shingles vaccine? Not likely, but still it makes you wonder because the pain is similar to what they say, you get with shingles, though that's usually just on one side of the body, and this is on both legs equally. Anyway, it's a mystery. Hoping it will resolve itself on its own sooner than later. And the last down this week, pretty sad, Wordle beat me this week. Broke a streak of like 153 wins, 5 months without a single miss, but now I'm starting over again. Funny, but that really is a notable bummer of an event. Anyway, that's ups and downs. for this week. Next up, top stories. The big story this week is the ridiculous situation with Trump and his gift airplane from Qatar or Qatar, however you're supposed to say that. I'm sure you've heard about this. This is just bad in so many ways. First of all, it's really dumb. Trump says it's a great deal because it's free. It's originally worth like $400 million. What sort of idiot would say no to a gift like that, he says. And that clearly is his instinctive reaction to it. Of course I'll take it. Who wouldn't? Are you nuts? But there are a few problems with that. First, it's blatantly unconstitutional. The Constitution is very clear. No government official may accept a gift from a foreign government. Like even the smallest gift has to be reported, and bigger ones are approved by Congress. It's not even a question. And the reason for that, of course, is that the founders were worried about rich foreigners gaining undue influence over our government. So here we are, 250 years later, that exact thing is happening. The Qatari government, known funders of terrorist organizations, Hamas, etc., giving Trump a $400 million gift. Why? What do they want to get for it? But no, they say, this isn't a gift to Trump. It's a gift to the Defense Department, to our whole country, to be used as Air Force One for a couple of years while we wait for the new planes to be finished by Boeing. By the way, I'm not sure there's anything wrong with the current Air Force Ones, but never mind that. But that doesn't make sense either. First, the deal says the plane will be transferred to the presidential library at the end of his term, so he'll still be able to keep using it, right? No one believes it's not for him. Second, the president can't just use any plane for Air Force One. It's not secure. It's not safe. It costs billions of dollars to create the planes the president uses, and it would cost at least $100 million and take several years to convert this Qatari plane to that standard. So all that taxpayer money would end up going right to the value for Trump, and he would likely never get to use it anyway because it would take so long to be ready. It just gets more and more stupid the more you look at it. But Trump cannot see past the initial allure of getting something big and beautiful he can use for free. The good part about this, I think, is that it's so public and visible and such blatant corruption and self-dealing at the very time he's telling people to cut back on buying dolls and pencils for their children. And prices are going up, and Republicans are trying to kick people off Medicaid and cut taxes for the rich. It's just a big, beautiful reminder of all their real priorities, which are to take care of him and his rich friends at the expense of everyone else. So my hope is that this will, break through and continue to push his poll numbers even lower. By the way, fun fact, if you didn't know, Air Force One is not any actual airplane. It's the name that's assigned to any plane the president is on at the moment. If he's on one plane, that's Air Force One. If he gets off that one and gets on another one, now that one's Air Force One. The name follows the person. And Air Force Two, you can guess, is the name for any plane the vice president is on. Anyway, just some interesting trivia there. The second big story this week is our new Pope, Pope Leo, originally from Chicago. The first American Pope, which is a pretty big deal, and arguably he is the Pope because of Donald Trump. We can't know, of course, but the Cardinals do have a history of choosing a Pope to address current world concerns. And an American Pope who is a champion of human rights and everyday people seems like a pretty good counter to Trump and Trumpism around the world. And you can tell they hit that target because of the reaction on the right. Oh no, a woke Pope. My goodness, what a catastrophe. The truth is, I don't really care about this personally. I'm an atheist. It all seems a little bit silly to me, honestly. But I do still appreciate Pope Leo, what I've heard about him so far. It does seem like a genuinely good thing to have someone so influential speaking out against the evils of this administration and the whole MAGA movement. So that's pretty great. Back to the bad news. A couple new awful nominations this week. Trump's nominee for Surgeon General is not a doctor. She didn't finish her residency. How can the Surgeon General not be a doctor? What she actually is another grifting pseudoscience influencer. She pushes alternative treatments on her website. She earns commissions on the sales of those products. Trump was asked why he picked her. He said, because Bobby thinks she's great. RFK Jr. loves her. Of course he does. That's a bad one. Speaking of RFK Jr. this week, in a hearing, he was asked, if you had a young child right now, would you have them get the measles vaccine? Good question, right? Our current measles outbreak is over 1,000 people now. His answer was, people should not take medical advice from me. What? You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You are the head of our entire government, scientific community. No one should have better, more accurate, and up-to-date information about available medical care. What are you even talking about? The irony there is that he's actually right. We really shouldn't take advice from him. But he's in that position, right? Anyway, that was a moment. Trump's other terrible nominee, he picked Jeanine Pirro from Fox News for U.S. Attorney in D.C. This is an important position with real power, and she's completely unqualified for the position. She does have a law degree, I believe, but she's really just a bomb-throwing Fox News host who loves Trump, which is like most of his administration. Seriously, though, that really does seem to be his main criteria for these important positions. Has he seen them on TV? Do they say good things about him? Never mind expertise or experience or qualification or anything that actually makes sense. Another item got my attention. Trump flew in the first batch of white Afrikaners who have been granted refugee status from South Africa. There's a good-sized group there who have been fast-tracked for refugee status, while at the same time, he blocked refugee status for people from Afghanistan who helped us in our war there. So they were in actual danger. So, white South Africans in, Afghanis out. Can you guess why one group was favored over the other? What could it be? The Congressional Budget Office this week, looking at the bill Republicans are pushing through Congress right now, said the Medicaid cuts there will drop millions of people from their health care. Can you imagine the real-life impact of that? And for what? Who benefits? Surprise, it's rich people who get tax cuts. Same as always with these awful people. They might be able to push it through, too soon to tell, not sure at this point either way, but I kind of expect this will come back to bite them. The vast majority of people are deeply opposed to this. They are cutting mental health services for low-income schools. This hurts kids and families directly, has huge long-term ripple effects. Hard to think who this helps. Speaking of things most people don't want, they ordered government agencies to stop considering the impact of climate change when they're developing policies. You can't even get your head around how dumb that is. And in part, as we've said, because the world notices these things, right? Beyond the direct damage of these policies, we are killing the American brand. Travel from Canada to the U.S. is down 13%, while travel from Canada to Mexico is up 16%. You think we're not going to feel that? And it's not going to, and that will turn around anytime soon? For the first time ever, this is really something. In polling around the world, China is now seen as a more positive force in the world than the U.S. A brutal, repressive communist dictatorship is seen as more positive than we are. Just imagine the impacts of that over time. That will hit every aspect of our society. On the good news front, though, the pushback continues. You might remember this. Trump threatened the governor of Maine because she was not playing along with his power grab. She was at the White House. He then went on to have the USDA punish the state withholding funds. She said, "I'll see you in court," right to his face. They sued, and they won. That was sweet. And pretty much everyone who sued this administration so far has won. I mean, basically everything they're doing is illegal, all these stupid executive orders. But all kinds of groups are doing a great job of pushing back on all that in court. And on a very local issue, but one that is surprisingly important to me, there's been a new law proposed here in Wisconsin that says if you're a restaurant, you can only say you're serving maple syrup if it's actually pure maple syrup. This is a pet peeve of mine. The menu says maple syrup, but it's actually corn syrup with maple flavoring. It's cheap, thin, Aunt Jemima sort of stuff. Nothing like the real thing. Real maple syrup is one of life's great pleasures, and we have some of the best here in Wisconsin. So this makes me very happy. It seems like it'll bring some balance back to the universe. I don't mind them serving whatever they want. Just don't trick me into thinking I'm getting the real thing when I'm not. All right, that's Top Stories. Reminder, if you are enjoying the pod, please take a moment to give us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It is a big help in reaching new listeners. So thank you for that. Next up, Inner Game Gold. Last week, we revisited the foundational mental game observation. You have thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. Pretty much everything builds from that. This week, I want to revisit the foundational quote from the Raise Your Inner Game book. The height of a person's success is gauged by their self-mastery. From Leonardo da Vinci. The height of a person's success is gauged by their self-mastery. I'm thinking about this because I'm holding a mental game webinar this week for parents of athletes. And I got a question from a woman who's a coach for a baseball team. She was looking for ideas for how to help them toughen up their mental games, not get so upset with themselves during a game. And I could tell from her note that she was basically saying, what can I say to them? How can I help them stop reacting in this way? And that is what most people, parents, coaches, even people just talking to themselves, intuitively think they need. They're looking for some perfect comment or quote or saying that'll help them stop reacting in the way they currently do. And I understand the impulse that that's what they're looking for. The problem is the mental game doesn't work that way. The problem in these moments isn't that we're thinking wrong, it's that we're thinking at all, when we should instead be present and focused on what we're doing. That is, what we really need in these moments is to be able to shut down the distracting and negative thoughts and emotions, get out of your head and back in the game, back into the moment. And that requires not some perfect saying, but a specific self-mastery skill called cognitive control. And that brings us back to our inner game goal for this week. Everything we want in our lives, everything that would help us perform at our highest level and make us happy and fulfilled and proud of ourselves, it all comes from self-mastery, from developing the specific skills that help us do that. Quotes and motivational sayings and all that, they can be helpful and comforting and encouraging for sure. But at the end of the day, what really makes the difference is having practical self-mastery skills. The height of a person's success is gauged by their self-mastery. Reminder, our book, Raise Your Inner Game, and Sports Academy Training for Athletes, this is what they teach. So check those out at raiseyourinnergame.com if you haven't already. And that is Inner Game Gold for this week. Next up, our challenge of the week. This week, let's work on self-mastery, and let's start with a self-evaluation. Take a minute, think about your level of self-mastery now, and let's break it into 3 areas: physical, emotional, and intellectual. So the question is, in each of these areas, how much control do you have over them versus them being in control of you? For example, if you're hungry or craving a snack, are you pretty good at resisting that? Or are you heading straight for the fridge or the pantry as soon as it comes up? With emotions, when you get upset or worried or angry or any strong emotion, does it take over and maybe make you say or do things you wouldn't normally do and might even feel bad about later? Or are you able to keep some distance from it and remain the person you want to be in spite of the emotions? And intellectually, and this is actually the trickiest of the 3, how much control do you have over your thoughts when you are worrying or obsessing about something or thinking negative things about yourself or being distracted and off in your head? Are you able to shut that down and bring your attention back to the present? Or are you pretty much stuck there until something else gets your attention? I expect that, like me, you are stronger in some areas than others. I am pretty good with the intellectual stuff now, which I suppose you'd expect, given that I wrote a book on the subject. Also pretty good in the emotional realm. My weak link is the physical realm, for sure. Hunger, pain, discomfort, those have a lot of power over my state. I could definitely be stronger in that area. In any case, that is the challenge this week. Take a minute, think about your self-mastery skills in these 3 areas, see what that brings up for you, and if perhaps it inspires you to make any changes, do any work in that area. All right, next up, highly recommended. Had a hard time picking a new book again this week. Ended up going with an old standard, old reliable, one of the Gabriel Allon books from Daniel Silva. Always satisfying, great writing, great stories. This one's called The Fallen Angel, and so far it's right up there with the other ones with my expectations. It's funny with this one, I keep thinking I've read it before. Some turn of a phrase will seem familiar, but then I don't remember what happens, what's next, but then something else will seem familiar. I honestly still don't know for sure, but I'm enjoying it anyway. For a show, I've pretty much only been watching Andor this week, the Star Wars series on Disney+. Still really enjoying that. I think I have 1 or 2 episodes left, and I'll be sad to see that one end, which says a lot about that. The big streaming news this week, not that big, but notable and sort of funny to me. A while ago, HBO Max announced it was changing its name to just Max. Seemed like a dumb idea to me at the time, and I heard branding experts say it was an epically dumb idea. You know, they had arguably the premier brand in streaming with HBO. To walk away from that just seemed nuts. But now this week they announced, never mind, we're going back to HBO Max after all. I would love to know what all went into that this past year, both making the switch in the first place and then deciding to switch back. Anyway, that was interesting. And I guess good for them for reversing course when they realized they made a mistake. The biggest entertainment item for me this week was this crazy video I came across. It's sort of a trailer for a movie called KungFury 2. It's not really a trailer, it's like 10 minutes long. It's officially called a sizzle reel, which I guess is meant to get people inside the studio excited about the project. Apparently it is a real movie, though you wonder when you watch it, is this for real or is it a joke? But it's a real movie that was shot some years ago, but's been hung up in legal disputes, so it hasn't been released. Has real actors, Michael Fassbender, he's legit and hilarious. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in there. But it is so ridiculously over the top, you just cannot believe what you're seeing. I mean, it's obviously doing it all on purpose, right? It's the whole idea of the movie. But man, oh man, the impression is that it's trying to be the worst movie you've ever seen. And the funny thing is, I would actually look forward to seeing this if it ever gets out into the theaters, just for the freak show fun of it. Anyway, you have to check this out. There's a link in the notes, assuming it's still available. KungFury 2. You can thank me or curse me later. All right, that's highly recommended for this week, and that is this week's episode. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. Keep up the good work. I'll see you next time.